Hey, how's it going? Guess what? This is the first ever episode of the Cure Emetophobia podcast. This is something that I've been wanting to do for quite a long time. And I don't have any intro music yet. So, you know, and that will be coming in the future. But just pretend that there was some kind of like a catchy intro song, and I had an announcer, and he went, "This is the Cure Emetophobia podcast," and blah, 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 blah. Something that sounded a really booming voice. A booming, professional voice, some kind of catchy tagline. So just put that together in your mind, whatever you think it would sound like, and just pretend that that just happened. Because all I have right now is my recording software and my mic, and I haven't put anything together for an intro. So yeah, you're just gonna have to deal with that, I guess. And I want to welcome you guys to the first ever episode. So just the other day, I was on the Cure Emetophobia Facebook group and one of the other Emetophobia Facebook groups, and I thought I would see who would be interested in listening to a podcast. I really like podcasts, especially when I'm laying down to sleep. I usually throw one on, and it's something you can just kind of, turn your brain off and listen to, and I find they're pretty calming and they can help me relax. So I thought maybe I would do something like that for you guys. So I'm just going to open up the Cure Emetophobia website and find something to talk about because I've just been kind of winging it pretty much this whole episode, which is all right. By the way, if you haven't signed up for the ebook list, you definitely should. Just visit cureemetophobia.com and there'll be a little pop-up, or at the bottom you can sign up. You just put your first and last name and your email, and then as soon as the book's finished, I will send you an email, let you know first, and you can order it. So now it's going to be not just a book, it's going to be a book and there's going to be a workbook with it. So it's not just going to be something that you read and you're cured. So it's really not going to be that simple. It actually takes quite a bit of work on your part. So that's what I need you to do if you order the book. So I'm putting a lot of work in on my end here to help you out and give you all the information and tools, strategies that you need, and then kind of structuring the workbook in such a way that you can go through and take stock of your life and where you are and where you're going, and more importantly where you've been. So you're going to take stock of your past and your present and your future, and examine your thinking styles and beliefs, and you're going to do a lot of writing. It'll take you a while. It'll probably take you a week to work through the book, through the workbook anyways, and do it properly. It's not something that you can just skip to the last page and learn the secret to being cured, because there really isn't a secret. There isn't one. It's not about, I guess it is in a sense about knowing more information, but it's just knowing that information isn't going to help you. You could know everything that you have to do to get over it, but you have to do the work involved with it, and it involves quite a bit of self-analysis and looking through your life and through your past, and putting it together, kind of like a story, and then we can look at different areas that you have to improve and how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be, which is away from this thing, which is where I am right now. So it's a good place. It's a good place to be, not worrying about this anymore. I know it can be really debilitating. And so the other thing, I guess, with this podcast is I'm not just going to talk about emetophobia all the time, because that's boring, and I would run out of material probably within 5 or 6 episodes. Really? I mean, you can only beat these topics to death so many times. So if I decide to talk about something else, I will. I will probably go on some tangents and tell some stories and bring up some other topics and give my opinion on some unrelated things. But I guess part of that is just to help you take it slow, and to not just be, because you're with people with emetophobia, we're always looking for the quick way to control our circumstances, and the quick way to look for the solution to a problem. And this sort of problem, it's something you can cure rather quickly, but it's something you do have to be patient with yourself. And so that's why when you listen to this podcast, I just want you to relax. Just breathe, just take a deep breath, and maybe lay down somewhere comfortable. That's what I usually do if I'm listening to a podcast. I'll lay down in my bed, maybe have a shower first, so I'm all clean and fresh, lay down, um, relax, maybe have some tea, and listen to a podcast. And I think that's when I get most of my thinking done, and you kind of digest the day, as it were. Um, so yeah, I just want you to be comfortable. If you're driving, that's fine too. You can really listen to it anywhere. Put it on your iPhone and take it with you. But I find it's good to relax and unwind and listen to podcasts. So hopefully this helps you out. Now, one of the things I've talked to a lot of people in some of these Facebook groups that have emetophobia, and now our group is up to, I think we're at 105 members, which is great, but we definitely want to grow it. So if you are not part of the Cure Emetophobia Facebook group, the thing that I say is different about my Facebook group is that we're focused on solutions to this problem. We're not focused on how to avoid actually being sick, because I see that a lot in some of the other Facebook groups, and not that there's I don't know, not that there's anything wrong with connecting with other people that have the issue, but if it's just an echo chamber of oh my god, I ate this chicken and it was slightly pink inside, or um, you know, I drank some wine that has been open for more than 4 days. Is it going to make me sick? Is it going to make me sick? So those kind of things, I think, just exasperate the worry, and that's not the right thing to be thinking about, because it doesn't help you. It only hinders you. So join the Cure Emetophobia Facebook group, and that's what we try to keep the discussion focused on there. So I think that's something that you guys would definitely benefit from. But I want you to know that emetophobia is more common than you think. So a lot of people that I've talked to, before they joined either of the Facebook groups or before they really started reaching out and looking for help, they thought that they were the only person in the world with this thing. That's why you don't hear about it as much as other phobias. It's because even though it is common, it's kind of embarrassing, and a lot of people they don't ever bring it up. I mean, if you have a fear of flying, you could just say, "Oh, I'm terrified of flying," and I mean that kind of makes sense, I guess, because people have died in plane crashes. It There is a risk inherent in flying. I guess it does make more sense than emetophobia. But emetophobia, being sick's not dangerous. It's something that everybody experiences at some point in their life. So, you can't really say that that's similar to a fear of flying, because not everybody's in a plane crash at some point in their life. It's very different. So, I just want you to know that it's definitely common. I think they say that I have this on the front page of my website, that it's the fifth most common phobia in the world. And I believe that because I've met a lot of people that have this thing, that have been struggling with it, and I'm sure that's probably only the tip of the iceberg as far as people that actually are out there that have it, and because they don't ever talk about it, because it is embarrassing. It's just it seems strange, like a strange thing to be afraid of, and if you were a little bit apprehensive towards it, then maybe that would be all right to just say that, I really don't like being sick. So but if you have a life-consuming, terrifying fear of it, that's it just feels embarrassing to bring it up. So I just want you to know that it's fairly common, and you're definitely not alone. You're definitely not alone in it. And so I hope that makes you feel a little bit better, that you're not, there's nothing strange about it or anything like that. And I'm just going to click through the website here and just kind of pick a topic, I guess, to cover a little bit. So I guess I could tell you a little bit about myself. I've probably, now I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not trained medically in any way, just to get that out of the way. But I have been studying and researching this, not just emetophobia, but other mental health issues for the past 5 years, and just in an effort to sort out my own life. And there's a lot of things along the way that I discovered inadvertently, and so this is definitely one of those areas that, because I struggled with, I spent a lot of time trying to solve. And when you spend so much time reading about a topic or trying different things and trial and error, and then eventually you find your way out of it, You start to put together what works, and so that's why I've started to compile this information for you. So if it worked for me, it can work for you, and that's the thing I want you to also know is that no matter how hopeless or powerful you feel that your emetophobia is, it is something that you can overcome. It is absolutely, because not everybody has this thing, and there are many people like myself that have overcome it, that were, at that stage of debilitating, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, you know, state of fear that eventually overcame it and took their life back. So I just want you to know that you definitely can get over it, and I'm going to hopefully help you do that. And I think that you have made the right choice by looking for materials out there and looking for strategies and starting your own journey of trial and error, I guess you could say, that has ultimately brought you here. So hopefully you don't have to spend as much time as I did, and we can just get you on the road to recovery. Okay, so I guess let's talk about, the most common symptoms of emetophobia. And these are all things that I had that I don't have anymore. I guess one of them would be the hyper awareness of food safety. So if you're always aware now, I am aware of food safety, but I'm not hyper aware. So I think I'm aware to like a healthy degree. Like if I'm going to cook chicken breast, I'm going to make sure that it's at the right temperature. Not because I'm paranoid, but because you don't want to be reckless, right? It's smart to do that, and there are risks inherent with undercooked chicken, and everybody knows that. So that's why I think food safety is important, but hyper awareness of it is something that is attributed to emetophobia. So if you find yourself, no matter what it is that you're eating, always with you have like a splinter in your mind about it, that if you're at a restaurant, you're always worrying about how that was handled, or was it prepared properly, or is there something lurking in this food that could make me sick? Is there a bug in this food? Is there some kind of a bacteria? And what could I do to avoid it? It's definitely something that I used to deal with. I would avoid certain restaurants, certain types of food that I wouldn't eat. That's the extension of that, I guess, is avoiding certain types of food would be if you take that to the next level. So avoiding things like chicken and milk and fish and shellfish. Now, I don't eat shellfish anyway because I don't like it, but not because I think it would make me ill, just because I don't like it. Not eating food from food trucks or street meat. Certain restaurants, that's definitely the second part of that. So, I mean, if you really like something like chicken, I love chicken, but there was a while there where when I was kind of at my worst that I wouldn't go anywhere near it, as much as I wanted to, because I love chicken. I'm sure a lot of you guys love chicken, and I was so afraid of getting sick from it that I wouldn't even touch it. So that's, if you find yourself in that situation, it's hurting your quality of life, right? Like, part of life is doing things that you enjoy and eating foods that you enjoy, frankly. So if you find yourself avoiding something that you like just because you have an overwhelming fear that it's going to make you sick, now is probably a good time to start looking into curing this thing. If you find yourself using over-the-counter stomach aids, so things like, now I don't know where you live, a lot of you guys I know are in the UK, a lot of you guys are in the UK. I am here in Canada, and in Canada for antiemetics, I guess the most popular ones are Gravol, Pepto-Bismol, Alka-Seltzer, not so much, that's I think more of a UK thing. But I do actually have some somewhere in a box that I never finished because I don't need them anymore. But if you find yourself taking things like that, ginger supplements and things, stomach settlers and things like that, or drinking tonic water and stuff like that. Perrier was a big one for me. Now, I still drink Perrier, but not for that reason. Not because, for some reason, the bubbles made me feel better. Strange. It just, I felt better when I was drinking something carbonated, and there's a lot of sugar and soda, and so I didn't want to go that route. And I actually grew a real liking for Perrier. It's good. I was reading something about the the place where Perrier is actually made, and I guess all the water comes from the same spring, the same one spring deep in the earth, and that's what they use to manufacture Perrier water, and I guess it's been the same forever. And the water's come from the same place forever. And I kind of like it. It's got this sort of, I guess it's got some sodium in it. It kind of has this salty sort of, it's really hard to describe. If you've never tried Perrier, you should try it. Not for the reason of the bubbles making you feel better, because that's not the goal, but because it's good. If you like soda and you like the carbonation, but you don't want all the sugar, pick up some Perrier or San Pellegrino or something like that. With Perrier, I try to go with the lime is my favorite flavor of that, but even just the regular tonic water, it's a little different. It's similar to club soda. Club soda is just carbonated water, just natural spring water with bubbles. But Perrier has a bit of a sodium. I don't know if it's an additive, but it has a sort of. It's really hard to describe. Not salty flavor, but there is something else there that regular water doesn't have. So next time you're at the grocery store or the Tesco's, which we don't have here. Sorry, that's a terrible accent. We don't have Tesco's. We have Walgreens and Shoppers Drug Mart. So next time you're there, pick up some Perrier. I think you'll like it. Give it a try. So yeah, if you find yourself taking things like the Alka-Seltzers and or drinking tea not because you enjoy it, but because you think that it's going to settle your stomach, or always having gum or candies or pills on you that you take, that's definitely a symptom of emetophobia. That's something that I did for a long time. I would always have them on me. Now I don't even think about it. I don't carry. I think there's still some Pepto-Bismol in my glove box, but that's just from a long time ago. They're probably expired now, so I should probably clean those out. The other thing would be avoiding certain places and situations. So think, bars and pubs, theme parks, restaurants, trains, planes, movie theaters, places where you're enclosed and you're not necessarily able to get to a washroom quickly or an exit. And you're always worried about, if I was sick, how would I deal with that? And as an extension, you start to think, well, maybe I shouldn't go to this place. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I should avoid the movie theater or the theme park. Or bars is a good one because, there's always, with alcohol intake, there always are people that are going to be sick from drinking too much alcohol, which is, probably a good thing for sure. But they just avoid it altogether, and alcohol is something that emetophobes avoid altogether. Now, give me 1 second. I was never one to avoid. Now, I'm not a big drinker, but I do like beer. I'm actually going to have one right now. There we go. This is a Beck's. It's a German beer. I prefer it to Heineken, but I was kind of disappointed when I found out that it was actually brewed in America. So it's a German beer, but it's made in America. I guess it's still an import because we're in Canada, but not the German beer I was hoping for. So, very good though. Good flavor. Kind of has like a fruity. I wouldn't say it was. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Kind of a hoppy, sort of light, fruity aftertaste to it. Really grown to like it. I was at the beer store one day, and I usually drink Bud Light or Budweiser. Nothing. I'm not really a craft beer guy. I find them too thick. A lot of them. Or the IPAs. If they're too hoppy, it's too. I don't know. I like to drink my beer, not have to digest it or feel like it's sitting in my stomach. I feel with some of those thicker beers, they just kind of sit there and I can't drink as much of it and I don't enjoy it as much. So I would usually get something. They say it's bland, but I think Budweiser is a perfectly decent example of a good American beer. And Bud Light, I think I prefer actually because I like lighter beers. I can drink a couple of those and not feel like they're just sitting in my stomach. So, and then one day when I was there, I had never had Beck's, but I'd always seen the ads for it in the store. So I decided, hey, I'll get some of those, and I really liked it. So now every time I go back, I think I've switched to Beck's as my main beer de choix, my choice beer that I now drink. So, yeah, you don't need to avoid alcohol. I think for me, I don't have that. some people say it's a gene where if you start drinking, you have to continue. Uh, you have one, it turns into two, which turns into five, which turns into. I don't do that. I've never really been that way. I never have been sick from alcohol in my life ever because I just haven't drank enough because I don't feel the need to. But obviously some people do, and when you're out at a bar and you run into people like that, it can be for an emetophobe somewhere to avoid. So that's, I guess, why that is. But you don't want to be, like I say, it's if you enjoy, having a few beers or having a glass of wine with dinner, but you're always paranoid about the alcohol making you sick somehow, which it won't, by the way. You have to drink like a lot to actually get sick, like a lot, like more than you think that you do, like a lot. I was talking to somebody from the Facebook group, and she was telling me about a time that I think it was her boyfriend that she was drinking with, and he got really sick from alcohol, and now she's afraid to drink alcohol. And I said, well, how much did he drink? And she was telling me like a lot, like a lot. Like when I say a lot of beers, I don't mean 6, I mean like 11, like a lot. And I say, well, there's your problem right there. I don't think it's not that the beer was bad or something, or that just because he had beer, he was going to be sick. It's because he drank 11 of them, I think is the problem. So anyway, just take it easy and, be reasonable, and you'll be all right. So the other thing, I guess, is vivid memories of being sick. And I don't think, see, it's strange for me because a lot of people will say, I'm just going to move this mic so if you hear any strange noises. So a lot of people will say that, there was a single event that caused my emetophobia. It was there was a time when I was sick when I was young, and it was so awful, and since then I've just had this completely life-consuming apprehension to the possibility that it might happen again, and they feel like that's the starting point of it. And I look back at mine, and I didn't really have. There is some times that I definitely remember being sick as a kid. One of them, I had a friend over for a sleepover, and stupidly, see, this is probably my own fault, but I ate a lot of spaghetti, the most spaghetti ever, and then drank a lot of coffee for some reason. I think I was like 10. I drank a lot of coffee. I drank like 4 cups of coffee, and then I laid down in my bed and went to sleep in a house coat, wrapped in like 5 blankets, with the heat in my room turned up to 80 degrees, because it was winter and it was cold. So when we first got there, I cranked the heat all the way up, planning to turn it down later, but I didn't. And then I woke up so hot that I ended up sick that night. So that's kind of what I look back and I think maybe if there was an event that caused it, it was that. But that's not how it works. It's not that an event caused it, because I didn't have emetophobia following that. It took maybe 7 or 8 years after that before I actually started to develop my emetophobia. And then when I look back, that was the only memory I really had of being sick. And so my mind tried to attribute it to that, but it didn't make sense for me because I didn't have emetophobia directly after that. But even if you do have emetophobia that seems to result from a traumatic experience, it's not. Here's the fallacy. It might have been triggered by that experience, by that traumatic experience, but this is the part where people get caught up, is that the experience was not traumatic. I'm sorry, but it wasn't. You're making it out to be traumatic. If you're in public and you're sick in front of your friends, that's not traumatic. It's only traumatic because you have social anxiety. It's only traumatic because of the other things that you have going on in your life, in your mental health life, that it causes you to believe that it's traumatic. It's the same reason why somebody could be in a car crash and wipe themselves off after and say, oh, that was unfortunate. It looks like I have to go car shopping now. And the person that has the same accident, and they're so shaken up by it that they never drive again. And they stay home, they get a job that's closer to work, and they start riding a bike, and they never drive again because they believe that experience has caused them to become that it's caused them to develop this phobia towards driving, and so they attribute it to that event. Same event for 2 different people. It's how you look at it. It's not the event itself. So this is kind of the root of the most important mantra of cure emetophobia, and of what I've learned developing this program and in curing myself, and is that it's not about being sick. It's not about being sick. It couldn't possibly be about being sick, because if it was about being sick, everybody would have emetophobia at some time or another, because everybody's sick at some point in their life. So it's not about being sick. It's about your thoughts around it, your emotions around it, and your thinking patterns around being sick. What the stories you've told yourself of what being sick means. The definition that you've created, this feeling that you've associated with it, that is completely fabricated by your mind. It's not real. It's not real. Not for anybody is it real. And so that's the most difficult pill to swallow, because I know how consuming it can be and how real it can feel. But it's tough to tell that to somebody that's been suffering with it for 10 years, because they look at you and you say, well, you know what, if being sick wasn't so horrible, then why am I afraid of it? They use their fear, they use their emetophobia to bolster their emetophobia, because they think, well, if it wasn't so awful, then why would I be afraid of it? It's a confirmation bias. I've written about this on the blog. I think there's an article on there about confirmation bias, so you should give that one a read. But it's basically says that because you're afraid of this thing, it must be awful. Because you're afraid of it, it must be awful. Or else why would you be afraid of it? But no, that's not how it works. You're afraid of something because you've created thinking patterns around it that have no basis in reality. They have no basis in reality. You've created these because of other issues that you have, because of your social anxiety, because of your desire for control, because of your very external locus of control and your lack of internal locus of control. Sorry, I had that backwards. Because your internal locus of control is too strong. Internal locus of control being your belief that you can control the outcome in situations in your life, okay, that the buck stops with you. External control is the way that you can manage and cope if something does go wrong. So, you could say, well, I'm going to study very hard for this test because I want to pass and I want a good grade. So your internal locus of control drives you to study. Okay. Your external locus of control would be if the event does arise that you fail this test, that you also could cope with that, because you could just go back and study harder and take the test again. If you have a weak external locus of control, you say, I can't fail this test. That would be the worst thing in the world. It cannot happen. So if it cannot happen, if you have to pass the test, your internal locus of control has to be so strong that you can assure yourself that you will do everything possible to study for this test and to pass. Now, if you look at that through the lens of emetophobia, if your internal locus of control is the things you are doing to avoid being sick, and your external locus of control would be, well, how you could deal if you actually were sick. If you have a weak external locus of control, you don't believe that you have the resources and skills to deal with being sick if it did happen. So what you're saying to yourself is, I cannot be sick. It's the worst thing in the world. It cannot happen because I couldn't control myself if it did happen. And because I have such a strong desire for control, that would leave me in a place where I'm desiring control, but I don't have it. So I would feel neurotic. I can't have that. So what you have to do then, your mind goes, okay, well, we better bolster our internal locus of control so that we do everything that we can to avoid being sick. And so you start putting in those avoidance behaviors. So now you're taking the Gravol pills every day. You're avoiding eating chicken. You're not going to the restaurants that you like. You're not drinking alcohol. You're not going out with your friends. You're avoiding people. You can eventually become agoraphobic. This is how agoraphobia happens, is because people have such a weak sense of external control that they have to literally control everything to the point in their life where they could not cope with being in a place other than their home, because if something happened, they wouldn't be able to tolerate it, because their external control is basically non-existent. So what do? They have to have such strong internal control that they stay home. They don't go anywhere. That is agoraphobia, and that's why this is such an important issue. It's something that we have to deal with, because if you let your mental facilities, if you will, get too far out of control, and you don't start to learn how to deal with these things and make the changes that are necessary, you're only going to set yourself up for more pain down the road. So that's why emetophobia has such a high cost. You know, these negative thinking styles have such a high cost that that you have to do what you can to fix it. And if you do the right things consistently, you absolutely can overcome emetophobia. Okay. So I want you to realize that yes, it's difficult and it's going to take some time and it's very complicated and there's a lot to it, but in the end you can overcome it. Anybody can. There isn't a situation where and I know that a lot of people have said, well, my emetophobia it couldn't possibly be the same as yours. It's much worse, and this would never work for me, and I need something else to help me other than trying to work through this on my own, because it couldn't possibly cure me because it's so bad. You don't understand. And I say, well, actually, a lot of people feel that way, because when I say that emetophobia is debilitating, I'm not just that's not lip service. It is, in the truest sense of the word, debilitating. Absolutely is. It can take your life away from you. So even if you feel like your emetophobia is the worst case, that I could not possibly have ever come across a case as bad as yours, trust me that I have, and that you are not alone, and your emetophobia is not somehow different than the emetophobia of anybody else. You might have it to a more extreme degree, but it is, in essence, the same thing. So, anyways, I hope that this podcast has helped you guys out, to at least help you relax. And if you're laying in bed, you should be starting to feel tired by now. But tell you what, if you want to play it over, sometimes I put a podcast on repeat. I'll listen to it over a few times until I fall asleep, and that not only does it help me sleep, but helps me relax, and then in the morning I can wake up and kind of mull over what I heard and what I learned. So yeah, definitely play it a couple times if you'd like. I'm probably going to do these once a week. I think is the best structure to have, because I'm going to make some notes throughout the week while I'm kind of working on my book, and things that I think deserve maybe a half hour or an hour worth of talk. Now, I like longer podcasts, because if it's a 15-minute show and it's over, you don't get the enjoyment of really relaxing from it and really just kind of letting the words flow over you. So I'm going to try to bring these up maybe to about an hour, I think would be a good length. Now, this one's not going to be close to an hour, because this is kind of the introductory episode, but that's what I'm going to shoot for. I also am going to be putting together an introduction for the show, that you have a little music at the beginning and make it a little bit more professional. But I just wanted to put this one online just to kind of give you guys a taste of what it would be about. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'm probably going to be uploading them to the YouTube channel to start, and then eventually I will host them myself, and so they will be available on iTunes and on my website. But for right now, I'm just going to put them onto YouTube. And what I'd really like you to do is sign up for the Cure Emetophobia updates on my ebook. Check the website every now and then, because there is new content being posted. I try to post every week, but writing a book's harder than I thought, actually, because I want it to be as good as it possibly can be. I don't want to just throw something together that I think might help and put it out there. No, I'm going to do everything I can to make this like the absolute go-to resource for people with emetophobia and to help you. So the other thing I want you to do is to go to Facebook, search for the it's called Cure Emetophobia Official is the Facebook group. It is the official Facebook group of Cure Emetophobia, and I do moderate that forum. So we have just over 100 members right now, but my ultimate goal, I want to see that into the thousands. So please, if you are not a member of that group, go and join right now and give us a little introduction of who you are. Tell us about your emetophobia and your history of emetophobia, and why you feel that now is the time that you're ready to fight and that you're ready to overcome it. Because I'm trying to build this into a community where we're there to support each other, and I don't want to hold anything back. I don't want to use the term safe space because it's not going to be a safe space. I'm not going to censor, trigger words and things like that to avoid bringing on anxiety, because that's actually counterintuitive to the solution. So we don't do the whole V. If we're going to say vomit, we don't go V asterisk 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 to like you would with a curse word. Okay, we don't do that. Some people do. I really, really discourage doing that. Just say it, okay? Because that in and of itself is an avoidance behavior. It's actually an example of low external control. Because if you have low external control and you're worried that if you read something that triggers you, that you won't be able to cope or control with that, control the anxiety that starts to arise. So what do you have to do? Raise your internal locus of control and make sure that you don't type or read anything that could be triggering. So we don't want to subscribe to that. Okay, so it's definitely not a safe space. I want you to join anyway, and yeah, so hopefully we'll see you in there. But again, it's Nick over at Cure Emetophobia, and that marks the end of the first podcast. So sleep well if you're laying in bed. If you're not, I want you to have an awesome day, and go back and listen to this episode over again if you have to, and we will talk to you next week.